I ought to have withdrawn my hand when his fingers brushed against my thigh, yet I remained still. I simply closed my eyes. Then he said, "I just don't want you to hurt anymore." It seems so innocent, doesn't it? Yet that single line stirred something within me that I had concealed for years. At that instant, I realized I had transformed into someone entirely different. If you've ever suppressed your emotions because you believed it was the proper course of action, stay with me. This is more than a tale of remorse. It concerns the realities we hesitate to voice openly. If this tale resonates with you, be sure to subscribe. I have plenty more to unveil. It was deemed a miracle that I managed to survive. 3 years ago, a semi-truck collided with the passenger side of my car, causing it to flip 3 times. I regained consciousness 2 weeks later, finding myself with rods in my legs, screws in my hips, and pain radiating throughout my body. The doctors mentioned that it might have turned out far more severe. "You're fortunate," they remarked. "Fortunate to still be here." However, when you find yourself unable to feel your legs and require assistance merely to sit up in bed, the term lucky seems to fall short. Everything starts to decline. I've lost more than just my way of moving. I no longer recognize the woman I once was. The mornings have taken on a serene stillness. My body feels unfamiliar, as if it belongs to someone else. As I gaze into the mirror, the reflection before me feels unfamiliar. I transformed into a figure of sympathy for others. They would murmur about me in the aisles of grocery stores. I once brimmed with vitality. Such silence should not be endured by anyone. Upon his return, he arrived home. "Wow, you've grown taller since I last saw you, and stronger as well. You're not a kid anymore." He walked through the house with a sense of calm and confidence. His voice lowered, hands unwavering, as he effortlessly lifted me from my chair. Amidst the painkillers and the chill of the sheets, an unfamiliar sensation began to take root within me. Not merely attended to, but genuinely acknowledged, felt, I understand. That was not my desire. I certainly didn't anticipate that. At times, recovery emerges from the most surprising sources. At 17, I signed the documents that officially made me his mother. It was never meant to endure. They referred to it as a temporary foster placement merely until his actual family could sort things out. Time passed swiftly, transforming months into years. When he reached the age of 5, there was never anyone there for him. Finally reached the age to cast my vote. I nourished him, cleaned him, and animated bedtime tales with my voices and sound effects. He referred to me as Mum before I was prepared to embrace the significance of that title. Yet as time passed, it began to seem as though it was genuine. It is now officially ours. I find myself in my mid-40s now. Life often turns the tables on the roles you believed were unchangeable. After the accident, I found it necessary to leave my position at the community library. I was unable to continue driving. I was unable to navigate the stairs at all. My body he disappointed me in the most intimate ways, such as washing my hair, getting dressed, and using the bathroom. Describing it as humbling barely scratches the surface. He leaped back in without hesitation, claiming it was merely until I improved. Yet we were both aware that I wouldn't. Nope. Our snug Vermont home rests at the conclusion of a shadowy, icy lane, scarcely illuminated by the winter sun. The heater is repeatedly turning on and off with a clicking sound. The windows become misty. On most days, the sky appears in a monotonous gray hue. On certain nights, the wind wails fiercely, making it seem as though the house is lamenting. Simply, only the two of us. Here we stand. He takes care of it all, picking up groceries, preparing delicious meals, and helping me transition from bed to bath and back again. He tells funny stories to bring a smile to my face and gently nudges me to remember my medication. He has never made me feel like a burden, not even once. That doesn't imply I don't experience the sensation of being one. A peculiar sense of isolation envelops you when your body seems foreign, as if it no longer belongs to you. Calm demeanor, yet passionate. The world seemed to erase you the instant you ceased to be of value. I once found myself in the limelight. People desired my presence. At this point, the reflection in the mirror revealed a stranger I could hardly identify. Merely another ordinary evening. Reclining on the couch, a dull ache coursed through my legs, the chill penetrating deep into my bones. He knelt beside me, rolled my sweatpants up just above my knees, and pressed his warm, calloused hands against my skin. "Are we in this tight spot again?" he inquired gently, working into the knotted muscles. I nodded, making an effort to focus despite the way his fingers danced. Steadfast, yet kind. His touch consistently transformed everything. It alleviated the discomfort in a way that no medication ever managed to. Yet on this occasion, it seemed distinct. His thumb crept upward slightly, perhaps an inch, perhaps even less. The slightest adjustment transformed everything. The pad of his thumb glided over the gentle fold where thigh meets hip, the place where pain and shame intertwine. I stood still, and he did as well. We remained silent, motionless. The atmosphere was dense, as if the walls were pausing, anticipating our next move. "Sorry," he whispered, retracting his hand, yet the warmth lingered on my skin as if it were seared there. "No," I spoke in a rush, panting. "Negative. Excellent." Our gazes intertwined. He was observing, uncertain. He nodded, then swiftly pulled my pant leg down, his fingers grazing my calf in a playful manner. "You're okay," he murmured. It was not a question. I offered a slight nod. I was not fine. Something was changing, coming undone. The quiet came back. Yet now it seemed altered. More substantial. More authentic. I felt it on my skin, deep in my chest, precisely where his thumb had roamed. After years of distraction, I finally concentrated on what I could obtain. I was contemplating my desires and aspirations. That night transformed everything between us. He caressed me as he had in the past, with care and tenderness, yet now my skin recalled every instant. Every time his hand grazed mine, it lingered in my thoughts far longer than it ever had before. I began to observe details I had overlooked before: the defined angle of his jaw when he concentrated. His gaze became tender each time it met mine. He appeared to be more focused than before. There were moments when he believed I wasn't paying attention. One morning, he assisted me out of bed as he always did, his arms wrapped around me. He tenderly supported my back, mindful of his touch. As I leaned closer, his hand lightly grazed against mine. With just a fleeting contact, time seemed to stand still for us both. It was merely a trivial matter. Just a second, perhaps even shorter. Yet I sensed it. His fingers clenched momentarily, then eased. My heart raced with intensity. We never discussed it. Not a single time. I couldn't find a moment of rest, restless and uneasy throughout the night. My legs throbbed with discomfort. Perhaps it was something beyond merely sore muscles. Reclining in bed, I gazed at the ceiling, attuned to the subtle sounds of the house. Suddenly, the door let out a soft creak as it opened. "Your light was still on," he murmured. Slouched in the doorway, tousled hair and weary eyes betraying a lingering slumber. "I found myself unable to sleep," I whispered. He entered uninvited and casually settled beside me on the edge of the bed. "Should I wait here until you're prepared?" I gave a slight nod. He reclined against the headboard, his long legs extended beside mine. I turned onto my side, my gaze locked onto him. His eyelids fluttered. His chest rose and fell, tranquil and measured. Before long, he was completely unconscious, serene, and motionless. I never intended to lay a hand on him. My hand. He instinctively reached up, sweeping his hair away from his forehead, gliding his fingers past his temple and down to the nape of his neck. My fingers lingered for a moment, tracing the softness of his skin and the perfect curl of his hair. I inhaled deeply. For a moment, it seemed as though time had come to a standstill. I repeatedly reassured myself that it was insignificant, merely a weary hand, a moment of drowsiness, a mother soothing her child. Yet with each utterance, the falsehood became increasingly difficult to accept. He never spoke of that evening. I never questioned how my hand found its way there. Through his hair. I lingered at the nape of his neck, absorbing every subtle nuance. But then his eyes softened, slowed down as if he were observing something delicate on the verge of shattering. And suddenly, something within me shattered. With each gentle touch, whether it was wrapping a blanket around me, assisting me from the bath, or sweeping a loose strand of hair away from my face, I sensed it deeply. The warmth, the sting. My body could no longer distinguish between kindness and desire. I realized it was an error. I persevered regardless. I found myself contemplating it constantly. I found my gaze drawn to his forearms each time he lifted something. His shirt clung to him each time he entered from the chill. Each time his smile left me utterly speechless. Reason moved at a crawl while emotions raced ahead. We kept our thoughts to ourselves. Absolutely not. Yet there were pauses, now lengthier, more significant ones. He extended his hand towards a cup, but mine arrived ahead of his. Our fingers grazed against each other and lingered for a heartbeat. Following dinner, the kitchen fell into a hushed stillness, heavy and charged. We continued to sidestep the truth, as if it wasn't already all around us. I attempted to maintain a sense of normalcy, folding laundry, engaging in small talk about the weather, inquiring about his day. It all seemed as though I was acting in a narrative that belonged to another. I wished for it to conclude. However, I was completely unaware of how to proceed. A fragment of my being concealed under layers of quietude and self-denial truly wished for it to continue. Everything unfolded on a Thursday. We sat together on the couch, a blanket draped over my legs, while I observed the rain streaming down the windows. He stormed in from work, drenched from the relentless rain, his t-shirt clinging to his chest. His hair was soaked. His hands were rough and cracked from the biting chill. "Are you all right?" he inquired, removing his boots at the entrance. "Is it just cold?" I whispered. He vanished for a brief moment, only to return with a dry towel, which he gently draped around my shoulders. He collapsed next to me, nearer than he had been before. Not a single word was spoken. The only sounds that filled the air were the steady ticking of the clock and the gentle drip of water from his sleeves. His hand slipped beneath the blanket, seeking mine, fingers gradually weaving together. "Absolutely," I remained where I was. "You seem to be trembling," he remarked softly. "It's nothing," I retorted sharply. His thumb glided across my knuckles. "You've been quite silent recently." I glanced to the side, and there he stood, simply observing me. Neither a son nor a caretaker, but rather a figure of authority. "If this seems off," he murmured, "just say the word and I'll halt." Yet I remained silent. Before I was fully aware, I found myself leaning in. Then he pressed his lips against mine, not softly, not with care, more like a tempest poised to strike fiercely. His hands gently cradled my face. My fingers sank into his damp shirt. His warmth enveloped me, a blend of tension and unsteady breaths. I ought to have put an end to it. I ought to have stepped back, yet I remained. I returned the kiss. It seemed as though I had been waiting an eternity for that moment. Suddenly, it struck me. In that kiss, sheer ecstasy. There are no justifications. Simply embracing it. Absolutely thrilling. Yearning for something greater. and then the unvarnished, breathtaking reality settled in. I was no longer numb. Not a word was spoken afterward. Initially, no. Only The quietude of the room was pierced by the sound of breathing. Our foreheads touched gently. I held tightly to his shirt, fearful that releasing my grip would unravel all that we had just created. He then leaned back slightly and met my gaze. "Gaze upon me," he murmured gently. "You're not my real mom." I blinked, feeling a sinking sensation in my stomach. "I've always known," he continued, noticing the fear in my expression. "No one ever voiced it yet. I pieced it together long ago." "You never spoke a word." "You never needed to." I parted my lips, but the only thing that occupied the void was silence. "It doesn't change a thing," he retorted sharply. "This wasn't confusion, just so you know. It was strength. I didn't kiss you because I was lonely or confused." He breathed out, his fingers gently caressing my cheek. "I kissed you because I've loved you forever, not in a maternal way. You saved me. You're the only one who's ever made me feel like I truly mattered." My throat tightened. I had always felt beneath the surface that he wasn't truly my family. Listening to it spoken aloud with such tranquility and clarity stirred something within me. The sensation was as if the earth had suddenly collapsed beneath me. The earth below us trembled ever so slightly. I remained his mother. Others perceived us in the same light. Yet the familial bonds that once seemed like unyielding walls now appeared as welcoming entrances. I expected to feel liberated, yet the guilt only grew heavier. Even the most genuine love can sometimes carry a hint of shame within it. "What does that mean for us?" I murmured. "It keeps us grounded," he retorted. Perhaps he was correct. To be honest, I came to the conclusion that comprehension didn't necessarily simplify matters. It rendered them utterly unmissable. The focus wasn't on the bedroom. Everything unfolded in that place. In the living room, precisely on the couch where I dedicated a significant portion of my time. The precise location where I rediscovered the art of walking with a bit of assistance. The very place where I wept into the cushions, believing no one noticed. He had just completed the cleanup after dinner, cocooned in a blanket while I feigned interest in a book. The atmosphere between us was charged throughout the evening, brimming with unspoken words as he sat beside me, our knees almost brushing against each other. We remained still. He gradually shifted his gaze in my direction, our fingers almost touching, eyes intertwined, and in that moment, realization struck me. Perfectly transparent. Without a doubt, without hesitation, only a radiant longing illuminating the way. I kept my gaze steady. Before I had a chance to respond, his lips collided with mine. This time there will be no gentleness, no gradual introduction, just precisely what I was looking for. After all those years of silence, the most genuine sound finally emerged, his breath intertwining with mine. I seized his shoulders, drawing him nearer. His body felt warm, solid, and undeniably tangible. Silence enveloped the atmosphere. Words were unnecessary. Our bodies expressed what our voices could not articulate. As it came to a close, he remained in his position. He neither seized his shirt nor uttered a single word. "Simply rest beside me." Our fingers intertwined his chest, moving in harmony with mine. I gazed up at the ceiling, feeling breathless. After so long, I finally felt whole, powerful, seeking, significant. In the chaotic aftermath, there was no remorse, simply embracing it. A profound, constant vibration coursed beneath my skin, a lingering warmth that remained long after the flames had faded. The following morning, I found it impossible to meet his gaze. I glided through the kitchen with a sense of purpose, my attention unwavering, unassailable. I arranged the table, filled the cups with coffee, and engaged in light conversation as if all was well. My hands trembled as I passed him the butter. I quickly expressed my gratitude as he handed me the plate, saying, "Thanks." "That's the third time you've mentioned that," he said softly. I managed to put on a smile. "I'm just thankful," he responded thoughtfully. He observed me from the other side of the table, his gaze inscrutable. "Do you regret it?" he finally inquired. I stood still. The knife I held lingered above the toast. "I do not possess any—" "I have an idea," I whispered. "I wish I didn't crave it so intensely." He nodded slowly, as if he had complete confidence. Indeed, it truly occurred. Silent. "No, I possessed it. Absolutely not." He leaned in, his voice unwavering. "What happened last night?" "No embarrassment here." My throat constricted. "You shall be. Only a single day." "No," he stated with conviction. "Absolutely not. Yet you shall. That is the true agony." I finally raised my gaze, locking eyes with him. Within them, I perceived it all. Resistance, aspiration, trepidation, fervor. It shattered something within me once more. "What implications does this hold for us?" I inquired. "Genuine," he remarked. "Perhaps a touch too authentic." At the grocery store, folks continue to refer to me as courageous. What an incredible force, they say. Such commitment. I simply smile. "Your son is fortunate to have you, I hear." I acknowledge with a nod. "Thank you, I suppose." Then I return to the boy who's not merely a boy. Not genuinely my own, not by lineage, not in the eyes of the world. We prepare dinner, side by side, organize the laundry, tend to the plants. We lead a serene existence, shielded by drawn curtains and courteous expressions, in the fleeting instances in between the brief, secret glances. On the other side of the table, our fingers grazed against each other in the corridor, the closeness of his body beside mine as silence envelops us. There's an underlying truth, a topic we both skillfully avoid discussing. Many believe they understand our tale. They truly do not. Their eyes are drawn to the dedication. They recognize the sacrifices. Yet they long for the nights, the stillness, the blaze we concealed beneath obligation and refusal. Perhaps that's everything we require. When he takes my hand in public, it serves as a reassuring reminder I'm not alone. What we possess belongs to us. "Do you need me to pick up anything from the store?" "How's it going?" he inquires as we make our way to the car. "No," I murmur, my fingers entwined with his. "I have all that I require." If this tale ignited a spark within you, embrace it. Take the plunge and discover the journey ahead. Experience it. If it changed your perspective on love even slightly, consider subscribing. I have an abundance of tales waiting to be shared. Some secrets linger eager to be unveiled.